In the book of Acts, at the end of chapter 2 and chapter 4, it speaks about the believers providing for one another. And then it says, none of them had need. Was that communism? Is it socialism? What exactly is it? And does it stay that way forever? Are we supposed to just give money away to whoever says they've got some sort of need? I mean, they were selling homes to provide for one another. It got crazy. They were selling plots of land and then giving the proceeds to the apostles, laying it at their feet so that they could distribute it as they saw fit to anybody that had need. Did it stay that way? We're gonna find out. Now, Ananias and Sapphira, they sold land, sold a piece of property. They lied to God. Did God kill them? Are they in heaven or did they go to hell? We're going to be talking about all this and a little bit more in this video. My name is Jeff Moores. I am a lead pastor, church planter, leadership coach, Bible teacher, and we're going to jump right into this. So we see at the end of Acts chapter 2 and at the end of Acts chapter 4, the believers having everything in common. Now, as we progress within that time, we have to understand, why did they do that? Well, they did that because there was such a large amount of people who were left over from Pentecost, and they stayed for the revival, and they were from other towns. So in order to be able to survive, they had to stay in other people's homes. They had to be given food, shelter, and clothes. They had to get their basic needs met. Now, over time, that, of course, changed. You actually see in Acts chapter 6, when the widows are arguing back and forth with one another because they feel like they're being overlooked in the distribution of food. This is when they choose the 7 deacons to take care of this so that the apostles can focus on what they need to focus on. And as you read throughout the epistles, you actually see that they start to set up who really needs to get taken care of. So right here in 1 Timothy chapter 5, we see it where Paul is writing to Timothy, who's pastoring the church in Ephesus at the time, and there is a ton of need. But he says this, he goes, make sure that you give proper recognition, starting verse 3, to those widows who are really in need. But if a widow has children or grandchildren, these should learn, first of all, to put their religion into practice by caring for their own family, and so repaying their parents and grandparents, for this is pleasing to God. The widow who is really in need and left all alone puts her hope in God and continues night and day to pray and ask God for help. But the widow who lives for pleasure is dead even while she's alive. Give the people these instructions so that no one may be open to blame. Anyone who does not provide for their relatives, and especially for their own household, has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. So we're seeing right now, he's going to continue on in just a moment, but we're seeing that Paul is laying out those that really need help, those that are being good to their families, that are praying consistently, all of that. And then he says, but ultimately the weight of taking care of those that are in need is not on the church. It's actually on the family. It's on the family. But it does say, okay, so now verse 9, no widow may be put on the list of widows unless, here it goes. Here's the stipulations. She is over 60, has been faithful to her husband, and is well known for her good deeds, such as bringing up children, showing hospitality, and washing the feet of the Lord's people, helping those in trouble, and devoting herself to all kinds of good deeds. As for younger widows, do not put them on such a list, for when their sensual desires overcome their dedication to Christ, they want to marry. So basically, there are older ladies that need to be taken care of. Take care of those older ladies. There's the widows that need to be taken care of. Take care of the widows. James says, true religion is to care for the widows and the orphans, those that in society cannot care for themselves. And so that's what we do. That's what we do. Now, here we go in 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 10. Paul is giving the example about how when they were with them, they took care of themselves, they worked, so they didn't want to be a burden to anyone. But he says, for when we are with you, we gave you this rule: the one who is unwilling to work shall not eat. Meaning that if you are able to work, if you're able to take care of yourself, don't depend upon somebody else's charity for your provision. So pretty interesting there. We basically see that, again, if you can take care of yourself, if you're able-bodied, then you take care of yourself. You get to work. And I'm wondering, some theologians would speculate that ultimately they saw this because this was abused. This began to be abused over time. And as the church grew, so did the need. There were so many other people. There's so many other projects, church things to do, people to reach, communities to impact, that they had to be incredibly smart with their resources. Eventually, you see, because again, we're talking about Acts 2 and 4, where everyone's just being provided for. Eventually, we see Jerusalem has to start to take up offerings because they've gone through all of their resources. But in Acts chapter 5, which we talked about in a recent sermon at Rhythm Church, you see Ananias and Sapphira. And Ananias and Sapphira lie to the Lord about selling a piece of land and saying, we gave all of it to the Lord. The issue wasn't how much they gave, it was that they lied about it. They could have just said, here's half the proceeds. They could have said, here's a tithe off of our sale. Nope, they wanted to appear holy. They wanted to appear as if they were sacrificing without the actual act of it. And they dropped dead. Did God kill them? Good question. We don't know. What we do know is there was immediate judgment. So the assumption is, yes, he did kill them, or he did allow them to die per their own shock, heart attack, whatever, but ultimately they're dead. Now, here's the other question. Are they in heaven? People wonder, did Ananias and Sapphira, did they go to heaven, or did they go, to hell? Ultimately, we won't know until we are on the other side of eternity, until we're actually in eternity. But my speculation would be this. Yes, they went to heaven. They were judged off of a sin. That sin had already been atoned for by Jesus. So eternally, they would not lose their salvation for that sin. Positionally, they're holy. Positionally, they are justified by Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection. Now, if they had not given their lives to Jesus and they just were a part of this community and trying to appear a certain way, and the Lord took them out, then they are not in heaven. But if they did surrender their lives to the Lord, call Jesus their Savior, I love Jesus. If they did that, then yes, they are in heaven.
Wow.
And as Christians, we always want to know these things. We always wonder, well, why did they die, or did they die? And like I said in the message, the question isn't, did God kill them, or why would God kill them? The question is, why would they conspire to lie to the Lord? And instead of getting all wrapped up in, where are they in heaven or are they not? It comes back to us just going, let's live in such a manner that we show the lost, hurt, and dying world the great grace, mercy, and love of Jesus. Let's make sure that we're not lying to God. Let's make sure that we're not indulging in sin. That's what we need to do, people. But I would love to know your thoughts. I'd love to know your ideas. I'd love to know your questions. So be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content just like this, for biblical teaching as well as leadership development. My name's Jeff Moores. We'll see you next time.